This is the Faders Up Podcast.
IamKadencePAT.
Welcome to the Faders Up Podcast. I'm Czar.
I'm Pat.
Chaos, what's going on?
I'm Oshay. You know what it is.
And we have a guest with us today. Welcome, Jacie.
Hey, y'all.
Welcome.
You're our
Thank you.
first virtual remote guest here on Zoom.
Liddy.
Going down in history.
Jacie is a singer,
love it.
songwriter in New York. This is the Faders Up Podcast, a podcast about pro audio and beyond. You can reach us on Instagram at FadersUpPodcast. You can also email us at FadersUpPodcast@yahoo.com. And you can reach us on our Facebook group at Faders Up Podcast. So we've got Jacie here, singer-songwriter in New York. How's everything looking up north with everything that's going on?
Interesting. It's like, I feel like I'm getting more accustomed to it now, but in the beginning, it kind of felt like I was in like, just like a whole nother world, like something you would see on TV, but never thought it could be real. That's
Right.
kind of like how it feels. And New Yorkers, I feel like, have a hard time understanding social distancing because we're always like on top of each other.
especially in New York.
Yeah, like,
I don't
you
think that's
know,
possible.
listen, like they don't get it. And people are very impatient. They don't want to wait. So they're like, all right, if you're not going to move, I'm just going to go next to you. You're just going to have to deal with it. So it's interesting.
So we're going to move into our first segment, which is Who's Been Pushing Faders Up, where we just share what we've been working on recently. So who's been pushing Faders Up?
Man, yeah, I'll go ahead and kick it off, man. So I've been pushing Faders Up kind of creatively and on the business side. So kind of the biggest thing that's dope is that I applied for the Metro Arts Thrive grant, and I got it. So I'll be leading like a 6-week virtual workshop on making beats through Zoom. So super excited about that. And then as I was just telling you, I ain't gonna get into the details of what we were saying, but I just got hired by a client to mix a song, mix and master. So I'll be working on that probably after they re-record it. We can edit that out though. But yeah.
Jacie, what have you been up to?
I've been doing a lot of IG lives. So been
Those have
doing
been
that.
hilarious.
Yeah, they've been pretty crazy. So it's been fun though. It's kind of like just having a good time, everyone just acting up and just being silly and like just enjoying life, even though we have all these, things going on. And been songwriting a lot too. Yeah, it's kind of like what I've been really, really heavily focused on as a songwriting and creating content and prepping for these IG lives.
Well, I'll go next.
Okay.
Because we usually have an order. We're usually sitting down at a table, so it's obvious who should go next. But looking at a screen, it's like, okay, wait, all right, what order? All right. But I've been creating a lot more. I'm really just diving into a lot of the software that I have and just creating some dope stuff. A friend of mine knows a person who just got two scripts accepted by Lionsgate. I think one's a reality show and one's something else. So she was like, hey, if you can come up with some music, I could get you in. I was like, okay, bet. So I'm coming up with that. And not really for that reason, but just overall finding my sound. So that's been going well. I've been recording with Kiara the Soul Child. I posted that on my Instagram, and that's been going good because it's really just us coming up with new stuff, but it's giving me a chance to really play with my gear and just find different tweaks and how I can get different colors out of it. So that's how I've been pushing Faders Up.
Pat?
Man, constantly creating tracks, and more than anything, I finally trying to finalize the songs that I want on my project. I do got a date set for July 2nd. So, yeah, that's when my project will be coming out, but just trying to finalize all the songs I've been working on. Probably got a single with another artist coming out probably in the next 2 weeks or so. I've been trying to get all that stuff done for that too.
So it just hit me when you said that date. Is there a reason that you chose that date?
Man, come on. The same reason every year. Because it's my birthday. I mean, it's actually on the Thursday, so it just kind of worked out.
Mm. What I've been doing is I've got a couple mixes I'm working on, and I sat here yesterday. So by the time everybody sees this, it'll be up on YouTube. But I sat here and shot out like 8 of my mics on Zoom to hear the differences and see which one sounded better. So I'll get that posted soon. Got a lot of plug-in reviews coming soon too. And I know I've been kind of fascinated by virtual instruments recently and was not really aware of how many free ones are out there. And some aren't good, but some of them are surprisingly good. So I've just been trying a lot of virtual instruments lately.
Good stuff.
Word. Everyone's still, using their free time wisely. That's what's up.
Yep.
I feel like there's a collective need to still be productive, feel normal.
Mm-hmm. We'll move on to our discussion with Jacie here. So I met Jacie at the CD Baby Conference 2018 here in Nashville. We were at the after party for the conference at Tin Roof down on Broadway. And I don't know if you had blue hair. And
Did I?
You did.
Yeah, probably. I feel like my hair color changes so often. I can't even keep track of what color I probably had.
I remember I was sitting at the bar and I was about to leave. I thought you were about to rap when you got on stage.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's so funny.
And like I'm halfway out of my seat and then you started singing and I was like, oh, let me sit down. And then you did, I don't remember the name of the song. It was like almost like a dance.
Oh, Vole.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm moving and I don't even dance, but when I'm drunk, I move a little bit. So you finished and came off stage and I was like, oh yeah, I got to go meet her. Was that your first time being in Nashville?
Yeah. And I was so excited to go. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be so dope. I love to go to different states in the US because it's like every state is its own little country. So there was that. And also I know that a lot of really talented individuals in the music world have come from Nashville. So I was really excited to be there.
So let me ask you, what was your thoughts of Nashville before you came? And what was your thoughts after coming and seeing it for yourself? Like what did you know or think of Nashville before coming?
Before, I thought it was like country, like music wise. I thought it was just all country music. I didn't know, because a lot of the people I do know that come from Nashville do country. Mm-hmm. So that's what I thought prior. And then when I got there, I realized that it's more than just country, and it's also just a music culture out there, like in general. Like music is like kind of like everywhere, and like the fact that you guys have this strip where it's just like all about music and entertainment, and like I thought that was just so dope when I actually got there. But prior, I thought it was all country, like all country music. So I was like, okay, so we're gonna hear a lot of country, okay. And then when I get there, and I'm like, oh, it's more than that. Actually, I didn't really hear a lot about country from the people that were from there. They told me more about other things outside of that. But I feel like people kind of said the same thing. They're like, everyone tends to think that that's all we have. And it's not the case. So, and I definitely saw it. Like I saw that it was, I walked by clubs and there were just all different types of music being played. And so it's not just that.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the the perception of Nashville.
The biggest misconception, one of them,
Mm.
especially when you consider the jazz influence here. Uh, yeah, it's a huge misconception.
Mm. And I want to ask you, Jacie, because I saw in your bio said that you started doing, is it
Kizomba.
Kizomba?
Yes.
Never heard of that genre. Tell us about that.
So Kizomba is kind of like salsa, in the sense where it's its own genre, but it also has a dance. So that's kind of like what makes them similar in that sense. Outside of that, they're not similar. Kizomba is a lot slower. They have a certain BPM. I don't know off the top of my head because I don't produce Kizomba beats, but I do know, like, from my mentor Keisha, he said Kizomba has a certain BPM. It's slower, it's more romantic, it's more sensual. A lot of the songs are usually about love, heartbreak, and like sometimes about like just enjoying life, depending on how upbeat it is. But yeah, that's kind of like the gist of Kizomba. And it's also, if I'm not mistaken, it originated in Angola.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Has anyone else heard of that genre?
Yeah. I've only heard of it because my roommate is like a Latin dance teacher, and so I used to go out like salsa dancing and stuff with him. Um, so over on the Mumbrian, like where those strips, like all them restaurants are, there was a spot there that I think every Tuesday or Thursday night they were like doing Latin dances, and they did Kizomba a few times, but that was I was out my league with that. I was like, yeah, I got it. You know what I'm saying? It looked nice, but my skills ain't up to par yet. So
Gotcha. No, just talk about I know you moved from Boston to New York. I can't think off the top of my head any artists that I know have heard of any artists coming from Boston. It's about the music scene there.
So I think I can't even think of the artist I can think of from off the top of my head, but
New Edition, right?
New Edition is from Boston. Yep.
I did not know that. Okay.
JoJo is from Mass. But I don't know if she's specifically from Boston, but most people, what they do, they usually represent their city. So JoJo, you know who JoJo is, right?
Yeah.
Get out, leave right now. Her. There's a rapper, but I cannot. Is it Jonah Lucas? I think it's Jonah Lucas. That's from Mass.
Oh, right.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. So there's definitely a good amount. And we have a lot of actors and actresses too that are from Boston. But yeah, Boston's great. I mean, we have a pool of talented people in Boston, and my whole music upbringing was in Boston, from classical music to now doing all these other genres.
How's that compared to New York?
It's a very unfair comparison. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of people try to come for me sometimes for leaving Boston and not continuing my music career in Boston. I do think that within having a lot of talented artists, there's not enough opportunities for them, specifically for the singers. When I was living there, I felt like there was way more for rappers to be able to perform. There's more showcases for them. But being a singer and the politics of how Boston's music is even like put out, like with the radio and stuff, like it's very catered to top 40. So it reflects in like how the music artists can develop out there. Because now like people only want to hear one thing. They want to hear what's popular. So like if people are going to a show for rappers, if you're a singer, you're going to feel out of place. But in New York, I've been the only singer at a show, and people were so excited to hear me because they're like, great, we get a break from all this rap. Like, so I just feel like New York just has more to offer for singers and rappers, but for rappers in Boston, like they thrive.
Okay.
Interesting. That's kind of the makeup kind of on the opposite end in Nashville, how you were like, you think that it's mostly country music and you come here and it's not. Hip hop has a really hard time shining through because of all the misconceptions that come along with it. So Yeah, people have started showcase. I've tried to do a hip hop showcase here, and it is a breath of fresh air. But just because, like, how you would go on stage, like, oh, we're glad to have a break from hip hop. Well, hip hop would be a great break from, you know, a lot of the music you hear walking down Music Row. So.
Right.
I
That's
feel like
real.
a lot of times the hip hop stuff, also because people don't know how to act.
Yeah, it's kind of our fault.
I mean, some of that, I mean, it connects back to the business end also, you know what I'm saying? Because it's so many talented people here. Like some of the people who I think are like the top, you know, artists is like, they're not doing anything, you know, beyond Nashville. And it always, you know, Pat and I have talked about this a few times, and he probably had more insight, but kind of like, why? Like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you can say politics and this and that, but after a while, it's like those excuses don't work for me anymore. Like, I don't what you think, Pat, based on like artists you work with or listen to or observed, stuff like that.
I mean, more than anything, I think it's a comfort zone thing. Like, I think when you grow up somewhere and you do music there, you expect everything to happen there at home. You know what I'm saying? You don't look for what's the best route for me as an individual. You more so you want your glory at home. So a lot of times they get comfortable. You know, just like we saying that it's not a lot of opportunities in Nashville, but it's opportunities other places, but they don't want to leave. So it's a comfort zone thing more than anything. They want to stay in their comfort zone where they people, you know, big them up, whether it's good or bad. They scared of the world outside of Nashville.
You see that?
I wish that people in Boston could like understand that, because like I said, I get a lot of flack for leaving, but I don't think they understand my timeline as an artist in Boston is very different than a lot of other people's timelines. Like, they started off performing in these like places from the rip, like off rip. Like, I was doing Kizomba. I was performing for like government events before that. So like, I wasn't even in the crowds where I was really trying to promote my music, because the crowds that were listening to me don't even have Spotify or Apple Music or know how to use a phone. So, so it's like I went from that to performing in places that were very far from Boston because I was too young to perform in Boston. Everything's 21 plus. I get to the point where I'm 21. Now I'm here trying to, you know, do more than just Kizomba, and people aren't even receiving me because they've already picked their favorites. So there's that. And then there's not even enough opportunity for me to even grow that fan base, because there's shows and things for singers like twice a month. So it gets interesting. I mean, I've had artist friends who are singers, and because they can play instruments, it gives them more leeway to perform in different places, instead of just doing playback. But even them, they say the same things. Like, they wish there was more for them.
That makes sense. You reach a cap, when you reach that cap in one city, you gotta eventually hop to another.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm feeling that cap in Nashville, but I see that cap where I'm just like, I don't know, I might have to pull a Pat and go to LA. For real. Walk through the doors of a major record label real quick and just drop
Yeah, I
my
mean, it's different. I think that everybody should try to get outside the city, because I mean, it's different. People look at you different. You know, it gives you the opportunity for people to take you at face value and not look at you from about, you know, where you live at, where you from, et cetera, et cetera. I think very important, because when it come down to fan base, a lot of times in wherever you from or wherever you at, you get stuck into what people think about you personally, and they also try to put what they want out in the city. You know what I'm saying? If you think about all the cities that support their artists, I'm pretty sure over half of them didn't get the support from their home city until they broke out somewhere else. You know, there's very few artists that like actually broke in their city. like I didn't know 3-6 was big until I went to New York and heard them talking about 3-6. You know, I thought 3-6 was like very local. Nah, when I went to New York in high school, they was bumping it probably harder than most Memphis people. And so, like, that's the part that I think, you know, a lot of people don't think about. Like with Atlanta, Atlanta's the only city I know for sure that supports their local artists, like regardless. Everywhere else, they have to go somewhere else and blow up and then come back.
That's a fact. I think I've definitely seen that firsthand in Boston, for sure. I wouldn't say everybody, though. I think some people definitely support. But for a lot of artists, they definitely have to go somewhere else, blow up. And then when they go back to Boston, like, oh my God, yeah, you from Boston. Yeah, you Boston all day. Yes. But they say Boston. They don't say Boston. That was like a little New York in me real quick. That New York influence. But yeah, they'd be like, Boston, yes. Pocket Con, Harvard, Yard, yes. So that's really what it is. I agree.
So, Jacie, how long have you been? Then you told me that you record your own vocals, sometimes. How long have you been recording your own vocals?
I would say for about like maybe 3 to 4 years, 5 tops. I don't think it's been that long, like 5 years. I think about 4 years that I've been recording my own vocals.
How long did it take for you to feel like you were good at it?
I would say when I moved to New York, because then I was forced to be good at it.
You kind of had to do it on your own for a while.
Yeah, because my setup isn't in New York, like in the sense of like where I used to record. So I had to be able to figure out how to record my own voice.
What kind of mic are you using now?
I have a Rode mic. It's my baby. I've had this mic since the beginning. This is the only piece of equipment right here. That's all I've got.
Only child.
That's it. One mic. And I have a Focusrite for my interface, and then these JBL headphones. I used to have Beats headphones, but I left them on my desk one day. A wooden desk.
They broke.
No, they like the rubber, whatever this material is on the headphone, kind of like peeled off. But I still have the headphones because I'm like, okay, I can't throw them away. They still work. I just don't know what to do with them because there's like no material on the ear part.
Beats headphones were the worst, boy. I don't care if this makes it out or not. My Beats headphones broke the second I put them in the bag. I promise you they did.
Wow.
I don't know. You must have got the new ones because the very first ones, the first generations were trash. Like everyone I talked to broke them. I even broke another guy's Beats headphones by accident. I was just trying to reach my hand. Like I was sitting in the back seat of the car. I was just trying to reach my hand like to the trunk. And I just heard like, oh, it was those headphones.
Yeah, the ones that I got, they are the best working Beats headphones.
Yeah, these the pro joints, right? Yeah. So I got these. Oh, go ahead. My fault, Pat.
Yeah, they last the longest and they the most comfortable on your ears. Like I done had these 3 years, and I got the first generation. I had the first generation Beats, and they didn't last probably like a year and a half. And then I got some other ones that was newer, and they didn't last long either. These are the ones that lasted the longest. And most people I know got the smaller ones. What are they called? The solos.
That's the ones that I had. They were trash.
Yeah.
See, I like the pro joints because it's like even like the reason why the other ones were breaking because they was just straight plastic, but this like the headband, you can like bend it and you know what I'm saying.
Why did it take all of those other terrible ones to make that final?
These are like second generation. I think I don't even think these are not the newest ones. They got ones that's newer than these.
Yeah,
he's like second generation.
Yeah, mine like 6 years old. I bought these in 2014, and the only reason I remember it because it was like I don't know. It was honest. I don't know if it was like retail therapy or what, but like 2014 was just a hard year for me. Like a lot of deaths in the family, and I remember I think I was either flying home or coming back, you know what I'm saying, my sister's funeral. And I was just like, man, you know what? I deserve those. You know what I'm saying? And I actually bought them from one of the like stores in the airport. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't even care. I was just like, hey. But
How
I
much you
compared
pay?
I compared it with Best Buy. It was a good deal. I think for these I paid it was less than $4. I think it was like probably like $350, $375.
Ooh,
Got 'em
ask
for
me how much I
200
pay.
on E.
I don't want to know because the fact that you asked me to ask me
180,
mean you about to like fight the
175.
ball on me, man.
$100.
Man, I'm gonna punch you in your throat, man. Wait till I see you. See, I knew he was gonna do something like that, man.
He got
It
his
happens to the best of us.
That was a good deal.
That
$100. Damn,
Wow.
where you got the hookup? I need that hookup.
Right.
Yo, that sounds
I
like did you
found
get them from
somebody that
Kizomba
had them,
Depot?
and I found somebody that had them, and they barely used them. And when they showed them to me, they looked brand new. I was like, oh yeah, let me get them. I give you 100 right now. He was like, all right.
Man, that
That
dude,
fool.
the idiot, right?
Yeah, right.
Man. So kind of even talking.
Oh, people, you'll be surprised what people give you when you show them the cash right there in their face.
That's a fact. That's a fact. People are so ready to get something off their hands if you got the money right in front of them. They're like, you know what? Yes, give it to me. That is
See, I just asked to meet up with him so I could see him. And so when I just said I'm gonna go, I ain't paying more than $100. I went and got $100, went to see him. I was like, man, these joints a little dope. And I pulled out the money. I said, I got 100 right now. He said, here. He ain't care.
You finessed him.
Watch out for Pat, boy. He'll pay you $5 for a 50-cent. Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to think of something. But yeah, watch out for Pat.
Yeah. Man,
Oh,
what you about to say something, Zar?
Yeah, I was gonna say. So your setups, you say you get the Rode NT1 mic, Focusrite pre, and then what DAW are you using to record with?
What, like program?
Yeah.
Logic.
Logic. Okay.
Team Logic. Hey.
So let's get back to your Rode mic. Is there a reason you chose a Rode mic? Was it recommended to you, or did you try it before?
I went on Amazon. I saw that there was a package, and I was like, oh, okay. And I ordered it. There was no research done, nothing. I was like, oh, this is a good price. Look at all the stuff it comes with. And then I asked a friend, asked Keisha. I was like, Keisha, is it NTA good? And he was like, yeah, it's a great mic. All right.
Done.
That was it. I didn't think too hard about it. That's probably the one thing I think I did simply, not too much thinking.
What about Logic, your choice to use Logic?
Because I have been exposed to it before. I've seen Pro Tools and I felt like it looked overly complicated to me. So I was like, Logic just looks easier for me to understand. I've used, different programs already, and Logic kind of reminds me of GarageBand. So I was like, okay, since I think they're both Apple products, I was like, all right, let me just use Logic because I kind of already know how to finesse with the GarageBand.
Yeah, I started with Logic, and I don't know how or why Logic has or when I first started using it, it had a reputation of being hard to learn. Yeah, I would get jobs in studios. I would tell them I use Logic, and they would say, oh, if you know how to use Logic, you can use anything. Come on. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, Logic isn't hard, but I don't know how it got that reputation, because to me, Pro Tools is hard because just the workflow and everything in Pro Tools is just different than from what everyone else does.
Yeah, that's true. I think Logic only got the reputation of being hard because it's an Apple product. Just like everybody say, oh, Macs are hard to work. You should get a Windows. It's easier to work. Man, whatever. I got a Dell one time. I never got one again. Outside the viruses that I kept getting, man.
Those things are,
Yeah, I'm definitely Team Mac, and I think we have this certain level of comfort when we're in our space. We have our mic that we know. We have our headphones that we like, etc. But being an artist, I'm guessing you don't always record yourself at home. So how does kind of creating this sound on your own, how does that impact you when you are working with an engineer? Do you kind of already have, something in your head on how you do it?
Like how does it impact me recording at home versus like in the studio?
Yeah, like so when you're at home, I mean, like you're doing it all yourself. Like, but how? I guess how does that dynamic change when when somebody else is recording you? Like mentally, like what's your thought process and how do you communicate?
It's a little more, I think it depends on how much I'm recording. So like in general, I do think it's a little more difficult to record on your own because I do, like most artists, we do a lot of overthinking, and it's easy to have someone there be like, all right, this is great. Stop. Don't, yeah. Keep going. Or like there's times where I'll re-record something and I'm like, damn, I should have listened to it because I heard it from when I said it, like when I sing it into the mic versus actually hearing what the recorded version sound like. And sometimes what I sing out loud doesn't sound good to me, but then the recorded version does. So like having that other person there is great because like they can kind of like give ideas and kind of like, tell you, okay, let's do this one again. Let's do a little more strong. And like, just like the dynamic between me and my engineer is great. So sometimes when he's not there, I'm like, oh, I wish Brady was here because I'm like overthinking. So yeah, that changes. And then and quality wise, I don't think much changes because I still send my vocals to him for him to engineer them. It's just that he's not there to record them. So that's the only difference. The major difference, I should say.
Cool. Good stuff.
Yeah, I'll ask y'all other questions.
That's right.
Yeah. So you mentioned your engineer. What is something that you looked for when you realized firstly that you needed an engineer? And then when you started working with different engineers in different studios, what was that process like for you? And how did you go about determining the engineer that worked best for you?
It was a little bit of like a trial and error because I started off recording, like singing, songwriting as a recording artist. I kind of just went into it. I wrote the song, and then my dad had a friend that had a studio. So I didn't really get to choose in the beginning. I was really young too. So I didn't really know what was a good engineer or what wasn't. I just knew that it sounded better than what I recorded on my phone. So anything in a mic would sound better. So from that, I can tell, okay, I can always tell what like my voice should sound like. And when it didn't sound a certain way, then I'd be like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like that. From him going on to the next engineer I worked with, I realized that the quality of what I was recording didn't sound up to par at times. I think it's the lack of experience on his end, but he was a great artist and he was able to record his own vocals, but I don't think that he understood like the dynamic of recording somebody else. It's kind of like a makeup artist doing their own makeup versus doing somebody else's makeup. It kind of was that experience. So from there, I knew that if I'm working with somebody else, I already need to hear what they've created because I don't like being anyone's guinea pig. And from that point, I realized like, okay, this man, he got magical fingers. He is talented because everything sounded so great. Like, God, like the experience I have with the current engineer I have, that's kind of like what I feel whenever we work together. So I don't know if that answers your question, but like I didn't ever have a moment where I was just recording myself at first. I kind of already went straight into the studio. And from each person, I realized how they work and what I liked and didn't like, and kind of like how to make that work for me in this current situation or relationship I have with my engineer now.
That makes a lot of sense. And that, you actually answered my next question too, in that you realized that one of the engineers you were working with, their vocals were not up to par with the previous engineer that you were working with before. Because my next question was going to be, how did you know if an engineer was competent or not? Because I think as an engineer, that's like for me, that was like my greatest fear. Like, will I get a good vocal? Will they be able to tell if I'm getting a good vocal? And I think as engineers, we've all had that moment like, I didn't record that good. And I think they knew that, and I will probably never get a call from them again. So you realize that, oh, this person may not be as experienced or may not be able to deliver a good vocal for me just because you already had that experience in a professional studio with good recordings.
I think the previous scenarios I started realizing that they weren't that competent is when they were adding effects to my voice that made my voice sound bad. Like one of the engineers I worked with loved to use Melodyne. And the problem is sometimes if you don't know what you're doing, it can make your notes go off. So I'm listening to it like, did I sing this many notes off? I am such a technical singer where like I'm listening to the littlest notes and making sure that they're on key. So I'm like, there's no way I could have been this bad. And he doesn't even hear it. So now I'm like, okay, it's not me. That's crazy. I know it's not me. So from there, I'm like, okay, maybe your engineering skills aren't that great if you can't understand like the fact that these vocals don't sound good. Like if you are using certain effects and they're clashing with the beat, like I feel like a great engineer understands balance. And if you don't understand balance, then that will affect the quality of the song. So I think that's kind of like how I can tell is like, okay, when I'm listening to what you've done, is there balance? Do the vocals sound good? I do think certain people have preferences on how perfect they want their vocals to sound, like all the notes being on pitch and whatnot. But in general, it's usually the quality of the vocal. Like, is it crisp? Like, how are you EQing things? Like just stuff like that will just show me. And I also think it's preference. Sometimes an engineer for one person is not the engineer for another. I don't think like every singer can use the same engineer because certain engineers, like I said, preference, it doesn't work for everybody, you know? So there's that too.
Word. Hope y'all hear that out there. These artists, they know. I
got a question.
Okay.
What's more important to you, like when you're picking a beat? Is it the chord progression of the beat, or is it just the actual beat altogether?
I definitely think as a Kizomba artist, we love melodies, great melodies at that when it comes to the vocal side and the beat. And I feel like the beat itself has to have a great chord progression. It's hard to work on beats that don't have that because I feel an energy from a beat, and that's what kind of helps me visualize what I'm trying to say. So I also don't make lyrics first, I make melodies first, and I get inspired by the melodies in the beat. So yeah, I need the beat to really have a really pretty chord progression. I love beats like that. Like, oh my God, those are the best.
Oshay, was you raising your hand?
Do you?
Oh.
Do you normally like write by yourself, or do you normally write with someone else? And which do you think is easier, like writing by yourself or writing with someone else?
In the beginning, I used to write more so by myself. I had a few songs that I wrote with people, but at one point it was more by myself. And even since I kind of had experience writing songs with people, I prefer to write songs with people. I think you get a good balance lyrically. I like to write a certain way because I get tongue-tied a lot, so my lyrics tend to not have a lot going on. So I'll give up. I'm like, nah, this is too many words. I'm taking all these words. I'm done. This is gonna be 3 words. We're gonna have to work with them 3 words and make it sound real nice. But then when I'm working with someone else, they're like, nah, put this really intricate word right here. Like nostalgia was in my Drink That song. I would have never used that word. Nostalgia? Like what? So I love working with people for that reason. I think that working with people gives for a more colorful song. It gives you more variety. It gives you dynamic things that you just come up with things that you would have never came up with on your own. So I'm all for co-writing, like 100%.
So on the business side, I'm sorry, Pat.
No, go ahead.
If you had a follow-up question, I didn't want to.
No, go ahead.
For sure. So on the business side, when you start co-writing with folks, do you guys? How do you make sure that the follow through occurs when the song is actually released? Especially in how does that work in Boston? Because I know in Nashville, people are really shy when it comes to talking about split sheets, the business, registering stuff, copyrights, all that stuff. How do you guys, when you co-write with folks, what's been your experience with getting stuff like that handled when it comes to split sheets and with the music you write?
It hasn't really been hard. I kind of keep it simple. I know in the US, because I deal with a lot of international artists as well. They keep it real simple. They just split it as many people involved. We just split it like that. It's not like, oh, you did this line, that line. Like most people, when you're working with them, in our experience, we're all putting into the pot. It's not like I did this one line, I want the credit for this one line. Like no one's really doing that. I see that more popular here in the US, where like when I'm dealing with people here, they don't think like that either, but higher, I guess, ranking in the industry, when you're like an A-list artist, stuff like that, people get really, into the fact that they had 3 words in a song because the payout is there. At least as an upcoming artist, I don't have that issue. I usually just go 50-50. Like a lot of times I'm the one making the chorus and the bridge, and they're making the verses, or we're doing something along those lines where it's being split that way, so it makes it easy. If you're just doing a verse, I will say up front, this is how much I think, split wise, it makes sense. And they're like, okay. I've never really had an issue with people going, oh no, like I don't agree to this. And I don't think I've ever had an issue with that, honestly.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm sure. I know it gets really messy, but I think people respect business relationships, and that everyone that I've worked with, except for one individual, everyone that I've worked with again. Like we've worked on multiple songs again and again. I'm helping them write. They're helping me write. They're featured on my songs. I'll be featured on their songs. So I think people are more focused on continuing the relationship than just being so like nitpicky about like that type of thing, because in the end we are giving each other credit where it's due on the publishing, copyright, everything, so it works out.
How
Say that again.
Yeah.
Oh, he froze. Well, I'll follow up while he's trying to unfreeze. So I'm a big technology person. When it comes to doing the split sheets, do you find yourself using like one of the apps online, or are you guys just, manually typing it up like in a Google Doc or something like that?
For me, as of late, it would be the manual, but I feel like if I had a lot of people on, I would love to know about like these apps. I think that would be very helpful. So you can go ahead and share that information. That would be great.
Oh, yeah. So it's a couple. So first disclaimer, we have not been paid for sharing this name, but just what I've used is one called Song Splits.
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, that's cool. I've used that one, but I think it's more out there now that probably have more features. I know I really like songspace.com. Shout out to Mimi McCarley, put me on to that. So Songspace is like a collaboration of a lot of different things. It's like Dropbox meets, split sheets, file storage. So it's like all that stuff all together. And like with Song Splits, all you can do is put in your name, like contact info, and like your PRO. But with Songspace, like the detail is much more intricate. So I'll probably be using that, in the future for future collaborations.
Me too. That sounds nice.
Any of y'all have something different that you use?
Microsoft Word.
Okay. Now, is there a reason, because Jacie kind of said the same thing, now, is there a reason that you all have chose to kind of do it that way as opposed to like using an app or something?
Go You
Okay. I never really knew about those apps until like I signed a split sheet with another producer and publisher, and they sent it to me through, I forgot. It may have been one of the ones you said, O'Shea, because when you said it, it rang a bell.
Probably.
Split sheets, probably.
Mhm.
Right? That's what you said.
Yeah.
Song splits.
Song splits. That's probably what it was. And I was like, oh, this is nifty. It kind of has your contract laid out, because I hate having to write up a new contract. As many templates as there are, it's still annoying. So I can see how it's beneficial, but I just use Word. I've always read up on contracts. We have not been supported by these guys either, but Music, Money, and Success by Barbeck and Barbeck. It's a book this thick with print this small, but it's full of information about just the music business. It literally, the title is what it says: Music, Money, and Success. And they have sample contracts. They have what you should look out for when it comes to different sorts of contracts and in different places. Anyway, I could go on forever about it. So I just kind of knew how to draw up my own contracts. And there are templates online. You can look up mechanical royalty contracts, producer contracts, engineering contracts.
I think I got that book.
Music, Money, and Success.
I think so. It sounds familiar. I think that's one of those books I bought but never read. I think it just looked good and I bought it.
I'm gonna Google that right now.
Like, this would look nice on my bookshelf right here.
right?
Pat,
I have
think
the
you-
same.
Oh, dang it!
What?
What's crazy as I'm seeing this book, I remember one of the editions, the 7th edition, the red one. I think I remember seeing this in my classroom, like on a bookshelf that one of the other teachers had left there, and I don't think I grabbed it. I know, right?
Gold sitting right there.
I know.
Jacie,
Low hanging fruit.
Jacie, were you saying you had that book?
No, I was gonna say that I agree with you. I didn't know. I knew about song splits, but like I said, my situations have been pretty easy. Everyone's able to kind of agree, and there's never really been an issue. So, and I deal with a lot of international artists as well, and like it's so simple out there. So they don't really say much. Like, oh yeah, whatever works. Just give me your info, and then it's never been an issue. But I do feel like in the future, I can see myself using Song Space. I like detail. And if I'm dealing with multiple people and newer people that I don't really have the same relationships that I have with the people I currently work with, I would want to use that.
Cool.
Sure.
Man, I just thought about dang it, I really should have got them to pay us for this before. But you advertise what you like, what you enjoy, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Another thing I like about Song Space, and a lot of times I use it to send out beats, and I like it because you can send a link and you can give the option for streaming only or download. So like if somebody just, oh yeah, let me hear something you got, boom, I'll send them the link. You can stream it. Oh man, I like that. Okay, well, cool. Now I'll open it up so you can download it, once we've had clear communication and, we're actually making a transaction.
Mm-hmm.
I have another question for Jacie.
Okay.
Word. So how do I frame this? So before you said that you were working with somebody and you wish you had heard a sample of their work.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I'm working on now as an engineer. I'm just trying to engineer a whole bunch of stuff and just have samples to be able to give to people who might be interested in working together. How much would you pay? First of all, what's your usual budget for a studio session? I know you have your engineer, so y'all might have some worked out, but what would be your ideal budget for, say, a 2-hour session? And would that change based on if you had received a mix sample prior to booking with them?
So I would say about like 50 to 60 per hour is not unreasonable at all. I feel like I can afford that. So 120 would be like for 2 hours. And then what was the second question?
Does hearing a mix sample kind of sway that decision? Like if you heard a terrible mix and they're like, yeah, I want 60 for an hour, and you're like, whoa, bro. Slow your roll. Would you even go about negotiating that price, or would you just say, no thanks, Frank, I'm straight? I'm gonna roll today, I'm sorry. I think she froze.
She froze.
I would say no, thank you. Yeah, she froze.
We all freezing.
I'm gonna start calling that.
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
But you froze.
Yeah. It's a great freeze shot. Like my freeze shots, I've never heard that.
Right, she had like the huge smile and everything.
Oh man.
Oh, you're back.
That's weird. Okay, good. Yeah, no, I'm a quality person. This is with video, this is with audio. Like, even if you're cheap, I'm not gonna use you if your quality is not good. So I know what I can afford, but I also know what I won't settle for. So there has to be like, it kind of has to go hand in hand. So like affordable for me and great quality is like the ideal situation. For me to even work with someone in general, I have to hear, like at this point, like I would have to hear what you can produce prior. So I don't think I'd want to work with someone if I can't hear what they've done, because I'm going to pay for something and I don't know what the product is going to be. Where they do that at? I'm not doing that. Like, I got to know what I'm signing up for. Like, I need to see your work. So it does suck because, you know, in any situation, it's like, damn, like, no one wants to work with me, but how am I going to get this experience if no one wants to work with me? So I feel for the engineers, but I mean, that's just the name of the game, you know?
You know what? You just made me think of another question, and this is kind of more on a producer engineering side. You know, as an artist, you have to be discerning, you know, about who you work with and, you know, how you spend your money. As a producer and an engineer, so I'm kind of asking the usual crew, like, I firmly believe all money's not good money. So can you kind of maybe give your perspective or maybe a situation where you just had to tell someone like nah, we're just not a good fit, or man, maybe you might want to try, you know, such and such engineer studio, you know, down the street. Anybody did for Chaos or Pat or even Jacie, if you have a perspective. I feel like I know what Zara gonna say. You're gonna be like,
I think that's
because I still got something to say about that.
Go ahead.
I mean, more than anything, I guess to answer your question, Oshay, I think I've actually learned that for myself. Like, some people, I just don't want your money. Like, because either I can't stand to listen to what you recorded to my beat. I don't want you to put out the song, but you paid me for it. So I can't promote it because I don't like it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I mean, at that point, it's kind of like, it's almost like you're wasting your time. You know what I'm saying? So I guess that's what I would call, you know, not good money or whatever. Like, of course, we all want to get paid, but some stuff just ain't worth getting paid for. Like, I really just, when it's something like that, depending on who it is, because I've also ran into situations where somebody be like, hey, my little brother want to do music. He try to get some experience. Can you record him? Can he rap to some of your beats or whatever the case may be? In a learning situation or experience situation, you know, I kind of just let this slide and ain't, you know, you don't got to pay me for nothing. I don't expect nothing from it. You know, I could be cool with that, but some artists, I just don't want to get caught singing with them, or I don't want them rapping on my beats. That's just what it is, because they just not good. And I mean, it's no disrespect, but it's just kind of like, nah, I'm good. Because I feel like I've gotten to the point, especially now, if I can't play it for my son, I probably don't want to create nothing with you now.
Now, do you mean in terms of content appropriateness or just in terms of like quality?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
I mean, like, I've definitely made some ratchet stuff, so I'm like, oh man, I can't even, you know, play this in the car. which some stuff, I mean, I like some ratchet stuff too. So, you know, some of that stuff I let slide, but I'm just saying, like, if it's just bad and ratchet,
Right. Like they do both.
yeah,
Man.
yeah.
Like, pick one.
If you're gonna be ratchet, you gotta be good. You gotta be Cardi B or something.
I mess with Cardi, man. I rock with her.
But Cardi B had someone working with her before she was Cardi B, though.
Yeah,
that's true. So I mean,
it's an interesting relationship, the artist and engineer one, because it's like, because I can honestly say this, like me and Kiara, the Soul Child, we've been recording a lot more, and I can say our relationship has really grown in that way. Like the trust is there. Like I can trust her to deliver. Like I don't have to be like, okay, do we have to do this at Tuesday at 6 or Wednesday at 7:30? Because you're just not. You know how sometimes we think artists can be just too full of themselves or whatever. Dealing with that kind of personality can be annoying for an engineer who's just like, let's just get it and get it done. And then for the artist who's like, I'm ready to get it and get it done, but this engineer is lacking in skill, you got to find someone who's level with you, I think, and then grow together. So as you increase your skills as an engineer, like you should always be learning more, mixing more, even if it is just you making a random drum beat and putting a random sit. Do it and mix it so you can get better. The artist gets better at performing and delivering and giving a good performance on the mic. And it's before you know it, you're both like, whoa, we're growing here. What is this? You know? So I think with that, it's important to find someone who's just on par with you, regardless of what that, and be honest with your par. You know what I mean? Be honest with where you are, you know?
Yeah, I think a lot of things, like when I say no skill, I think even with the worst rapper or singer, I can hear potential. So, you know, like even with Cardi B, I'm pretty sure whoever was engineering was like, man, what am I doing? But they could hear something in her. And I mean, really, that's what it takes. All it takes is one person to believe in you. And once that one person believes in you, sky's the limit at that point. So, I mean, I can still hear potential in a bad song or a terrible person with, you know, without any skill. I can still hear the potential, but I think some people just get caught up in, oh, I'm good, and I don't care what you say. You know, I'm just gonna do what I do. So I mean, when I'm talking about trash, that's more so what I'm talking about.
Gotcha. Like uncoachable people.
They uncoachable, and they don't care or have any concern about the content they're actually putting out. They're just trying to hit a lick and be famous.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. I used to have a student who shall remain unnamed. I'm not that petty, but I had a student.
They know who they are.
Yeah, you know. now I have another student, so I want to be clear. I'm not. So Major Mac is a super dope artist in Nashville who was a former kid at my school. That's not who I'm talking about. He's super dope, but it was this other kid, and I remember. We used to have these I'm
just saying, like, when you eliminate somebody.
No. Trust me. At the high school I taught at, it was a ton of kids. Like, nobody's going to be able to.
Okay, I feel
anyway,
you.
I don't.
It was just funny. It was just funny.
So awkward.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to tell you which one of my kids I do love.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, because I didn't want nobody to think I was throwing a jab at my dude. But anyway, we used to have I used to do this club at the high school called Rhyme Club, where like on special days, like during lunch, I would have like 20, 30, 40 kids in my room just like writing rhymes on the spot to whatever the beat is, and then kind of having like a competition. And so we used to, you know, just chop it up, have all these conversations after school. And I remember one kid saying, kind of going along with what Pat was saying, was basically like, man, I do whatever, you know what I'm saying, to make it, to get on. I mean, if they want to hear about guns and drugs, then boom, that's what I'm going to give them. And so I asked him, what if, I'll be politically correct. But I basically just asked him, what if this particular thing became popular? Would you start rapping about that? Nah, what? No, I ain't gonna do that. But you said you would do anything. You know what I'm saying? So it's like kind of working with people that have conviction, you know what I'm saying, that have their lane and their boundaries where it's like, hey, and it takes compromise sometimes, but you just gotta, like, what are you willing to compromise? Like, compromising your personal aesthetic versus compromising your morals and your integrity are two different things. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what. Oh, go ahead.
I think that leads me to an interesting another question for Jacie. How do you? I know every songwriter has their own source of inspiration. Where do you draw your source, and at what point would you change up something in order to fulfill your idea of success with your dream and your career? I guess with that question, like, where's your line to where you say, I'll change this, this, and this, but this I won't change. I don't care if it makes me, I don't care what the results of that are, but I'm not changing my style just to have, that notoriety. What is that source of inspiration for you, and where's that line for you as well as you continue to grow?
So my source of inspiration as a songwriter definitely comes from different relationship experiences with people and with myself. Just how I've navigated through life and kind of like venting about it. So venting about an experience with somebody that, like, I'm very much of like a quality time person. So like me not getting quality time with a lot of people around me has an effect and ends up in a song. It ends up in a song.
Nice.
Seeing other people deal with things, and I'm an empath, and hearing about their situations then becomes my situation. So that tends to like translate into my music and my hurt for them. But then in the song, I am the person receiving what they're receiving. So it tends to be a lot of my inspiration. And then obviously the struggle of an upcoming artist has there's a lot of things to talk about on that end. So usually it comes from different life experiences and just me being an emotional being. It's a great way to kind of let that out. As for what I would be willing to change, I feel like I'm very much a go with the flow person. So if I had a certain level of management, it was like, okay, we want you to do this. I think I would pretty much go with it as long as that my culture and who I am as a person doesn't get lost. Like, I don't want things to kind of get shut out. Like, I think back in the day, the industry did a really good job at hiding certain things about people, and you're not going to hide like my culture and the fact that I'm Haitian because you feel like that would sell better if I was like positioned as a, who are you? Where are you from? Are you Latin? Are you this? Are you that? Because a lot of people will tend to think that I'm from different places in the world. And then when I tell them I'm Haitian, they're like, oh, you're Haitian? Granted, during this point in time, I feel like Haitians get way better rep than they did back in the day. Like, I know Wyclef definitely got a lot of flack for representing the fact that he was Haitian so early on in his career. So if I had a team that was kind of trying to change that about me, I probably wouldn't let them. And if they want me to be practically naked, I probably wouldn't want that either. Like, there's a certain level of like comfortability I have with like showing skin. And then once that hits a point where like they're like, no, you have to be naked, I'm gonna be like, well, then I can't do this. That's where I draw the line. Also, I'm not gonna paint, like, I don't want to write certain music that is harmful to others. I always want my music to be a place where like I can vent, and even if I have someone literally writing songs for me, I have to feel connected to that song. I don't want to sing about things that I literally have zero connection to. So that wouldn't work for me either.
That's good.
How long does it usually take you to like write a song before you would say, oh, it's finished?
It depends. Before I moved to New York, I used to take forever, like months. And I mean, shout out to my engineer, because I would come in with a finished song and he knew that when I came in, that song was complete. Like, it was a very well written, feeling filled song. But now I feel like I've been able to turn around songs a little faster, especially when you're writing for other people, including Keisha, which is my mentor as well and friend. He's like an artist that pumps out music every week, and I'm not exaggerating. He releases a song every week. So you can only imagine the level of productivity that this man has. Like, he's like, if you're writing a song for me, I want that song yesterday. So I've been able to turn around music quicker for myself, like within a few days. But the song is not done to me until it's mastered. So even when I'm recording it in the studio, the song is not done, because a lot of times I can't really, come up with like layers myself. My engineer is very great. We have an amazing dynamic. Well, he'll help me come up with different backgrounds and just help me blend everything together. Because when I'm recording, as of late, I've gotten better at this, but when I first moved here, it was very hard for me to come up with backgrounds on my own. I only hear main vocals. I never hear backgrounds. I don't know why, but as of late, I've been accidentally coming up with backgrounds. So that helps. But in general, I would say when I'm in the studio and it is mastered, that's when the song is done. It is not done until that point.
Let me ask you this. Was somebody saying something?
You hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, weird. I was just saying I love that so much because that lets me know as an artist you understand production, where a lot of artists just do not understand production. So yeah, that's dope.
Thanks.
Well, that gives me a question. Being that you do understand kind of some of the intricacies with production, kind of a two-part question, which kind of could maybe segue to any questions you have for us. One is, have you dabbled in making beats yourself? And then two, when you're using a beat that you didn't make, how often are you actually in the process of when it's being created versus you just get the beat once it's finished? So that was kind of like three questions, maybe. Yeah.
Was it three? I thought it was two. I heard
whichever one you heard. I don't know.
I've never made a beat before. I've tried, but it's not for me. Like I do so many things. I like to edit pictures. I like to edit videos. I record my own vocals. Making a beat, I don't know. I wanted to get into it. I wanted that thing that looks like a little video game with the different colors. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
With the pad, with the square.
Yeah, I wanted one of those.
Like a beat machine thing.
Yeah, I wanted one of those because I'm very hands-on. So I'd want to be able to like tap and do stuff like that. Because I know there's different ways to make a beat. You can already get like a lot of the stuff pre-made and kind of put them. Yeah, exactly. So for me, I probably would want to do it that way. I'm not opposed to making beats, but I feel like I would want to start off with that little machine. I think that would help.
Yeah, well, don't talk to Pat about it, man. We already know how you felt about machine, man. But
I think she's talking about the Ableton joint.
Man, either way, but you like the Ableton. You just didn't like the machine.
Yeah, I just didn't like the machine micro.
The smaller joint. Got you.
Yeah, it didn't make sense for me.
Got you. Okay, and then Jacie, you were I think about to answer the next question.
Am I a part of so in the beginning, when I was doing Kizomba, because my engineer was also my producer, I was more involved in it. But at the same time, like I said, I was more go with the flow than I am now in regards to beats. So like he would say something and I'd be like, okay, yeah, sure. That sounds great. Like we had a whole song done. He went to Europe, came back and was like, I'm changing the whole beat and switched the whole vibe. And to this day, I wish I can go back in time and tell myself, no, Jacie, you liked that first beat. You need to stick with that first beat. Because he completely changed it, like drastic. Like if I were to play them side by side, I'd be like, damn, like, why did he change it to this degree? Like, so back then I was a little more involved in like different sounds and what I wanted. But like when it came to like from layer to layer involvement, I wasn't that involved. I would just tell him to change a few things here and there to make it make sense for how I would write it. And now I just find beats online and I get the stems and then I send them to my producer. And then when we engineer, and when we work together, we'll change what we need to change to make it make sense. We'll switch around the structure of the beat if it doesn't work for me. But that's been the easiest way for me to at least be kind of like consistent with writing and putting out music versus working with one producer, because I haven't been able to find a producer that really understands my sound, because I'm more international and I'm not just R&B, which everyone thinks I am because I'm a singer and I'm Black. So
well, kind of another follow-up question to that. In your process for procuring beats online, are you mainly going to YouTube or like a website like BeatStars? And then I'm guessing on your level right now, I'm guessing you're you're purchasing exclusive leases only?
Yeah, a little bit of both. Sometimes I go on YouTube, but mostly on YouTube. I'll email the producers because sometimes they don't have, like they'll have a website, but it's not very detailed. And I usually want the exclusive beats. Some of the beats that I'm the only one that can own them. No one else can lease them after I've purchased it because I get the exclusive complete, like no one else can have it type of thing. And I've gone on BeatStars. I usually end up on BeatStars if I'm like, okay, YouTube doesn't have it. But as of late, I've been working with producers from Nigeria. Shout out to C-Mart. Like he is the producer of one of the most recent songs I've released called Something For You. So we've been working together a lot. And Keisha also is my mentor. He produces as well. So it depends on what I'm going for, where I'll go for beats. Like if I'm going for an international sound, I'm going to go international and I'm going to hit up my international connects. If I'm trying to do something more like US market type music, which I would consider like the R&B trappish vibe that I hear a lot more now, I'm going to be looking online. Although a lot of those producers aren't even from the US, but I'll be looking online and see what I can find there, because I haven't had the greatest luck getting producers like to send me beats and I'm like, oh, I actually like this, because they send me like one or two, or they'll guess what I'll like, and sometimes they kind of get it, but there's like a missing element, or sometimes they're completely off, and I'm just like, yeah, no.
I'm gonna just make a plug real quick, man. Cadence, holla at your boy, man. He be killing it.
Yes, Cadence, we gonna connect after this.
Yeah.
Yeah, how has it been getting the producer to send you the stems?
Well, for the international ones, I haven't really needed to, because I was the featured artist on the song. So like all they really needed was my vocals.
Okay.
As for the online ones, it's just a click of a button. But I'm sure when you're dealing with people, because I've experienced this being featured on people's like other artist songs, when they needed the stems to kind of go back and change things, it was like a headache. So I've experienced it through a friend, but personally for me, I haven't had that issue, thank God.
This is, as an engineer, I will record, I'll get a 2-track to record to, and then the artist, wants me to mix it, and I'm like, okay, get me the stems and all the individual files so I can mix it. And
oh no, it's fine, just do it like that. Oh no, just do it like that. Yeah, no, this is fine. Yeah, no.
Here comes all the
no, it's not.
Well, the producer can't this, but I'm like, okay, like, look.
But how are they getting the beat though? Like, are they getting it from a person, or are they going online? Because some people don't buy the stems. Like that's you have to buy that.
That's what it is. Like, at least for me, like most of the sessions I do, at the studio, because I rarely track vocals at home anymore, because I got now I can go to a real studio, and most of the time I would say, actually, since last summer, I would probably say 10 times out of 10 artists are coming in with a 2-track. And they're buying them, so I'm like, that's at least one step. They're not just doing free downloads. Half of them are buying them, but it's kind of like, it's really just based on the level you're at, because it's not like, and because I'm a teacher by profession, like I taught audio engineering for 7 years at a high school, like every time I'm doing a session, it's also like a educational experience. So I'm kind of teaching and explaining stuff. So it's not that they don't understand, I guess, the importance of it. A lot of times it just comes down to budget, and maybe they don't want to wait. Like, sure, if you wait another 4 weeks, you have the money to buy the stem, but and if depending on what studio, if you're dealing with, I'm saying, like people from the streets and stuff, it's like, man, I don't care, man. I'm just, they're just trying to, some of them trying to wrench their money, so to speak. So
Yeah.
That makes sense. I feel like because of my upbringing as an artist, if that's lack of a better word, I started off with dealing with the producer, so he was able to go in and change things around. So once I started kind of trying to be more independent in that sense, I knew that I'd still want to be able to have access to the stems of the beat, because there's always things that we could switch around. So I've never really went into it not wanting the stems. Like I honestly can't relate because my upbringing is so different. A lot of people are starting off where they're kind of doing things on their own and they're pulling beats online and they're recording. I think because I started off literally in the studio. I never experienced recording on my own prior to that. I think that kind of helped me kind of see things the way I do, where because I'm like, I don't know what level I'm on, but thank you for the compliment. But I don't know. I just feel like it's just my upbringing as an artist, and that is how it started. So led me to that point.
That's a good take.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think a lot of artists, they don't know the difference between having stems and not having them. So I think more than anything is just the knowledge that you know. Well, you probably don't know because like you said, how you started, you probably don't even know what the difference would be, but a lot of artists don't care to know. They like, okay, I got a 2-track beat, so give me the best sound you can with that. So if you're not telling them or they not hearing from experience that it sounds better with the stems or all the manipulation they could do with the stems, they don't care. All they know is I got a beat. It works. I wrote to it. I got a smash. Hey, mix it with my vocals.
Word. So, Jacie, what's the worst experience you've had in a studio setting?
For me, I don't know if it's necessarily my studio session per se, but when you walk in and like, I personally don't like a lot of people in my sessions. I come with one person max. I'm not a fan of the whole like entourage thing, but that's not my culture. I don't come from that.
Right.
And I understand that that's a part of the, the music culture for some people. But I guess my worst is walking into that and having to deal with the aftermath of what the studio smells like. And when people are smoking weed, and like it just does not help the vocals. Like,
yeah, and it ruins the equipment.
Yeah, it's just like that's probably the worst.
Yeah.
For me, outside of that, nothing crazy, to be quite honest. My life in the studio has not been that bad. I think that's probably the worst that I've ever dealt with is when you're in the studio and everyone's smoking. They're like, oh, does it bother you? And I'm like, yeah, can you not?
Like, I always discount a person when they're like, I don't discount. Let me not be mean. But if I walk into a studio and they've been smoking or you can sense it, I'm like, you don't take this seriously. I think what I've enjoyed about our conversation so far is how seriously you as an artist take your craft, not only as your craft as a songwriter and a singer, but the craft as a whole, the whole song, how it comes out, the imagery, everything. And I think that's what we mean when we say levels, is the attention to detail and quality. That starting out, an artist who all they can do, and I think budget has a lot to do with this too. All they can do is go on YouTube, download a beat, record a 2-track on their USB microphone and put it out on SoundCloud. That's not a bad place to start. But when you take something seriously, I think it's important to always want to learn more and level up. So yeah, I think we've all dealt with artists who were just like, bro, I don't understand why you're doing this. Appreciate the $50 real quick, but I really don't understand why you're doing this.
I think that's that shows the importance of mentorship. I was dealing with very established people, like people who are making hits in the Kizomba world. Every person in the Kizomba world was connected to my producer. Like they all knew him. So for me, I'm like coming from that. Like this is the person I'm working with. So I was off rip. It's like going to a school that doesn't have much versus that has everything. Like I was in the right hands from the jump. So in regards to learning, like I was in great hands. So I think that positioned me differently. And that gave me the upper hand of learning things. And then I'm also a very like nitpicky person. So like I am very strategic. I like to study things, and I was able to learn from these people that I was working with. Like these are like established artists. So it's like, who else better to teach me than someone that literally won awards, who's been interviewed by the BBC and all these other people, like internationally known, your music's getting played everywhere. Like who else better to teach me about what I should do in this technology-based world now that we're living in, and how to make my music and make money and make technology work all together. Like, you know, so I think mentorship is huge for upcoming artists. And I think that we all need it. We all need a mentor. It's not just in business you need a mentor. You need a mentor in every avenue that you feel like you have not mastered. And even when you do master it, the masters have mentors. Diddy has a mentor. Like, everyone got mentors.
Mhm.
But
Oshay.
yeah,
That was beautifully said.
let me ask another question, kind of going back to the production part. With your experience from both sides, artists being right there in the spot, what kind of like, what are some questions you would have for producers that would maybe help producers work better with you or with other artists in the future? Like, what are some producer questions from an artist perspective?
I guess in the beginning, my hardest thing when it came to like dealing with producers, and when I dealt with producers who started from scratch with me, how do you guys go about your creative process? Like, what is that like? Are you able to like reverse back and restart things? Like, because sometimes I feel like some people, once they have something done, it's done. They don't want to touch it. But are you able to kind of like dissect what you've created and create off of what you've already created? Like, what is that like for you? Like, your whole creative process?
Well, I can answer for myself. And I was telling Pat before, like, I'm slowly inching back to like making new beats again. I've just been doing so many other kind of creative things and businesses. I haven't, but I was kind of going through playing some beats from my girlfriend last night, because she's an artist as well, and kind of hearing some of that older stuff kind of puts me back in a creative space that I was in when I made it. And for me, like, my inspiration, it just comes from like normally starting with a sound or a sample. So if I'm going through, whether I'm going through my vinyl over here, which is off camera, I can't see that, or a splice, certain samples I would just be like, whoa, did you hear that? Oh man, I gotta do something with that. And then just being creative with editing, like, so sometimes I may just, hey, I wonder what this would sound like if I reversed it. I wonder what this would sound like if I did X, Y, and Z. So for me, it's very kind of like a rapper would freestyle, when I'm making
Experimental.
Yeah, it's like, man, let me try that up, then work Command Z. Let me try that up, that work Command S. Save, undo, rinse, repeat. So that's kind of my approach to it. I can't speak for the other producers, on the podcast right now, but they can chime in.
I mean, we're here. We can answer it.
I say you can chime.
We're grown. We know when to speak. I guess I'll go next, because I know Pat's answer is going to be off the chain, so I want to get my answer in before he comes and steals the spotlight. I would say for me, I like to just kind of tittle around the piano a bit. Like, I'll, just start playing.
I love it.
And then when I start, like, if I find a chord progression, because to me that's everything, a good chord progression, like you said before. As I find a chord progression, I'm kind of feeling like, okay, I'll go off this, and then I'll use my left hand to keep it going, and then maybe my right hand to solo or something, or I'll just record the chord progression and then find other harmonies and then melodies and then counter melodies, and I'll just build off of that. So I always like to find a chord progression, which just comes from just messing around. I find a key I like, mess around in the key, and then once I find a progression I like, then that's when it just kind of builds from there. And I don't ever put the drums on until last. I have a hard time starting with the drums. I know, right? That's so crazy. I have very hard time starting with the drums. I come up with the harmony first, and maybe some extra layers, and then a melody, then maybe a counter melody, and then I'm like, I know what drums will help enhance everything I've done. So that's kind of how I build it. But if I'm writing, because I write songs as well, if I'm writing, I start off with the melody. I'm just like la da dee da, Then I take that la-da-dee-da and put actual words to it and try to build something then underneath that.
And see, when I was doing beats, I would either hear something in my head and I would just play it, or I would just hit the keys until I come up with the melody that I like, and from there just layer on top of that. But like you said, Chaos, I would do drums last once I've got a melody and bass line down and all that. And
you've upset Pat, man.
No. I'm always shocked to hear people say that, but hey, that's coming from a drummer though.
Yeah,
so,
I'm about to say you are a drummer.
Yeah, I'm a drummer, so and I'm just different.
But I also used to be really good at people either singing or rapping would give me a hook, and I would create a track in, like, not even exaggerating, like 5 minutes, because I would just hear the whole thing. And I was so familiar with the sounds that were in my chord Triton that I knew exactly what sound I wanted to go to, and I would just play what I hear in my head, and it would go with that hook. And I mean, to answer your question about being able to kind of deconstruction and build off of what someone else had, I don't think I've ever really had to do that, because people have just been happy with what I've had already, and it's already going with their song anyway. But
not necessarily deconstructing someone else's. You show a beat and they're like, okay, I like how this is going, but can we like if it's an old beat, for instance, can we make it a 2020 beat instead of like
revamping
2000? Yeah,
like adding stuff or taking stuff away from the beat, like that.
Yeah.
I definitely don't have I wouldn't have a problem doing that. I'm not the type of person that I feel my way is the right way, or my way has to be right, where you want me to change something and I'm like, no, I made it this way. This is how it is. I'm very open. Mixing too, I'm not, you want to do something in the mix, even though I may not agree with it, it's not my song. So I'm going to do what you want. So, same way with doing a beat. If you wanted a different drum pattern, if you like it, let's do different drums. Okay, I don't care.
It's funny you say that, because I agree to an extent. Like, I agree with everything except the I don't care part. Like, I'll do all that stuff, but like when I'm in the studio and they're like, oh man, like I had this kid, he must have drove like 2-3 hours from somewhere in Tennessee to come to the studio, and he had been doing stuff on his MacBook in GarageBand or whatever, and basically it was like, you know what I'm saying, can you try, do this? So I'm doing everything, and he's like, hey man, can you put this on it? I'm like, yeah, I can. I mean, and he just kept going back and forth, and it was like he was trying to get me to mirror this bad recording that he had already did. And it was like, so it's like, yeah, I'll do all that stuff, but I can't say I don't care, because I'm cringing on the inside, because I'm like, it just doesn't sound good, but it's what you wanted. So
I don't mean I don't care as in whatever. I mean, I'm saying I'm open to change things.
Yeah, I feel you. Me too.
Speaking of, I know we mentioned drums. Do you guys prefer to use actual instruments in your beat, or like the computerized, I guess, pre-made loops for your beats?
Before we get to that, we need, because Pat's the main producer here. So I can't wait on his answer to the last question. So.
Oh, sorry, Pat. Oh my God.
You good. See, it's so many answers to this question for me, because I always believe that as a producer, you have to, like they say, it's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. You got to learn how to do everything in different ways. Because what I've learned from just my experience in making beats is, the more ways you know how to make a beat, the less likely it is for you to get a brain freeze or have writer's block or musician's block. So, like, a lot of times in my process, I'm inspired by emotion. So a lot of times my emotion either comes from the artists I'm working with, the people I'm in the room with, or a lot of times, which I've been doing a lot since we've been on lockdown, I get my emotion from other places, whether it's songs. I might binge watch a show or a movie, and I take the emotion that I experience doing those things and try to put it into music. So that's kind of where most of my inspiration comes from. As far as my process, I'm a drummer first. I mean, that's actually probably the easiest way for me to start a beat is with the drums, but I kind of have trained myself to start in many different ways. That way I don't get stuck and it's easier for me to create because if I start somewhere and I'm not feeling it, I can go the other route or I can turn around and do it backwards or whatever the case may be. So I just kind of have learned to create in different ways, whether it's melody first, chord progression first, drums first, loop. And so a lot of times now, if I'm bored, yeah, I sit here and I go through sounds, but that's only if I'm not, on a time restraint or it's late at night and I'm just like, okay, let me see what I got. Cause I got plenty of drums and sounds on my computer that I still don't know where it's at. And I ain't never heard them, which is cool for me because I get bored with the same sound. So that's one thing I am different from most producers. I have go-to sounds, but for the most part, I always like something new. So I try not to build a routine of what sounds I go to. I'm also build a routine on how I build. So like I say, okay, for a full beat for me, I have like 5 elements that I might feel like it needs, and then I just try to find those 5 elements to construct a beat or whatever. And as far as building it up or reconstructing or building a track after I've met with an artist and they wrote a song, I mean, that's actually my preference. Like any artist that I work closely with, I usually just send them like a basic format, basic loop of the beat, and they write a song. And I always tell them to do like a demo of the beat. Like a lot of the artists I work closely with, they record themselves. So they record a demo and they send the vocals back to me, and then I try to rearrange and build a track around their vocal. And then I send them the stems. And I mean, they're still open to change, whatever, but I like to have that opportunity to reapproach what and add on to what they have created. Because I think when you're building a beat or creating a song, it's all about, making them blend and mash together, making them sound like they came from the same pipe.
Right.
So that's what I try to do is make them blend as much as possible. And then, I send the stems, and if something needs to be changed, that's nothing. Because I actually got a couple beats right now where artists, they got them from other producers, but they want me to build on top of what that producer has done and kind of put my own, I guess, version to it.
And Jacie, what were you asking about? Oh, you said between instruments and...
Yeah, like do you prefer to use actual instruments or do you prefer to use like the loops or things that have been created online or these I know they sell like kits and stuff online.
Yeah.
Like what would you prefer? Or do you like using the both of them? Because I know some people do both.
I mean, in a perfect world, both. It depends on the song. That's always the easiest and the most ambiguous answer. It depends. I think in terms of time, because I don't personally play an instrument, you know what I'm saying? So the time that it would take me to go get a musician for every element in a song is just not, feasible or even, logistically logical. I do have, normally I don't, and it's not that I'm against it. It's just like, I like it the way it is. There was one song I was producing for artist, Major Mac. I mentioned him earlier. We had this song called Jimi Hendrix, right? So like this whole hip hop rock, hybrid. And I actually did get an actual guitarist to lay down electric guitars on that to blend with the sample guitars that I had played. So, it just depends.
It does, because one thing at least with the music, I find myself producing the most, like with the last EP we released, 20 by Kiara the Soul Child, available on all platforms. Please go download at your earliest convenience. Thank you. Why'd I bring that up? Dang it. I think it, like Oshay said, it depends a lot on the song, but I find myself doing a lot of acoustic things. And something that programming your own guitar or even your own drums is and I think Pat's situation is a lot different because he is a drummer himself. Like, I can't think the way a drummer thinks. I don't think the way a guitarist thinks. They might think of a lick or a turn or a run that I would never think, just because I'm not a guitar player. I'm not playing the guitar. I can try my best being a piano player, but it's a different thought process. So I think when you have a song that requires like the Jimi Hendrix hip hop kind of song that you were working on, Oshay, a real guitarist would work there. You know, you want that kind of feel, that vibe, and then it always brings a different perspective to the song that you're working on. And I think with the sounds that you can get these days, I mean, they're impressive. I'll be the first to say output is like amazing. And of course, so many other sounds that you can get out there that sound very clean and clear and present and very 2020 and all that good stuff. But I think it's all at the end of the day of what you're after for that song. If you're like, I need someone else's spirit on this, or I think I can get by with doing my own little guitar lick and it'll be fine. So that's my take on that.
Okay. I feel like Pat is going to be like, definitely got to add some drums, some real drums up in there.
I mean, again, I probably, like I said, I just train myself to do it a bunch of different ways. Like, surprisingly, sometimes I use drum loops and I build on those, and then sometimes I create the drums from scratch, and then I might add a loop on top of it or sample a loop that intertwines with the drums I created. So, I mean, I always think it should be a blend of both. And then obviously the genre is depending on the genre, that's really what determines what type of instrumentation you use. Now, in my ideal situation, I would always want to have some type of musician in the room with me, whether that's bass, live drums, live piano, saxophone, trumpet, whatever, because I feel like every song should have some type of live element in it, just to translate with the words that are put on a song. And if you listen to, like, most of these big songs, big records that we love and we listen to, they might sound like they are programmed. 9 times out of 10 is some type of live instrumentation intertwined in there, because it just gives the song a little bit more life and character when that one instrument is able to follow the lyrics or follow the voice of the artist.
I agree.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think another way to look at it too, it's a quote that I use all the time that says, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. And I think a lot of times we need to flip our perspective on the way we look at loops, because I feel like, or just any sample, because I feel like you have two sides of the fence, right? Where, or at least I did, I definitely dealt with this every day teaching. I had some students who would killer, just code and making beats, and they used all loops. And then I had some kids that were coding making beats and they programmed everything themselves. And the ones who played everything or drew everything in themselves would always kind of like give themselves this pat on the back while challenging the other person. Man, that don't count. You cheated. You looped. And I'm like, and the way I look at it is everything is a tool. You know what I'm saying? Because if you really want to get down to it, you can be like, man, you cheating for using a computer. You didn't, you know what I'm saying, make that yourself from scratch. So it's just like, is what you use it for. I look at it as a tool, but I will say using a live musician like, because the samples we're using were recorded from acoustic instruments a lot of time, but the benefit of it is you get a different groove, right? So I could have a sample of you playing something, but I could bring in that same artist whose sample I'm using to the studio, same instrument, but get a different feel because it's a different groove, but it's still the same sound, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you always have to have a musical element with things. But what you just said, Machine, which is Native Instruments, but Machine has a commercial that's like that. How you said like, I thought I was cheating when I was using drum samples, so I made my own drum samples. But then I thought that was cheating, so I made my own drumsticks. But then I thought that was cheating, so I grew my own trees to make my own drumsticks. And it's just like, okay,
Yeah,
at
like,
some point.
Yeah,
at some point it's about how you use the sound that you have. Yeah, but I just thought that commercial was funny.
Wow,
Man,
I do have, oh, go ahead, Pat.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's all art. I've
Yeah.
definitely met producers that they do it all different. You know, it's about, I know some producers, they just put loops together. But what I learned from actually trying to produce like that, it's an art in that.
Yeah.
Everybody can't blend stuff together. Everybody don't know what to put together. Like, so, because what I try to do usually when I'm learning a new skill, I limit myself to something. So, like, for instance, I know on previous episodes I talked about arcade and Serato sample and other stuff that I use. The way I learned how to use those programs, the way I use them, is I isolated myself to using only those things. So that to me, because I had to find out if I use this, what is my identity in using? Because I don't like watching tutorials and getting into a routine of how other people use things. I like, okay, how do I want to use this? And then I isolated myself to those plugins or that one tool, and I just kept using it until I built my own character and identity and how I use that. So then at that point, I can share it with anybody. I can say, hey, Oshay, I use Serato sample, try to use it, or Chaos here, check out Arcade. This is this. I'm never threatened about sharing information because I have my own character and identity to how I use something. So, when you're doing that, it just allows you to be your own producer. So, I mean, I was one of those people that talked about producers only using loops, but guess what? I tried it, and I did it for 1 week. It was pretty hard. It was hard to do, but then eventually I found my own way of doing it. So now I can't say nothing about them because I know how to do it too. And I used to knock producers that sample all the time. I got a new perspective once I got Serato sample. I said, okay, I'm gonna learn how to sample. I'm gonna start chopping samples, and I started chopping them, and I found my own way of doing that. And so, like I said, it's all art, and I think it's best for you to learn how to do everything because all art and music is about. It's just like humans. We're all different. We all approach everything, different. We feel different ways about everything we experience. So it's always good to try things so that you can build your own character and create the person you really want to express to the world.
Man, I think you said something that made me long for the days when I used to do online beat battles. I love the beat battles where everyone is given the same sounds, you know what I'm saying? Or I remember, Pat, do you remember P5 Audio?
No.
So P5 Audio was kind of like, another online like sample maker or whatever, but they were coming out with this new kit. And so, anytime you got a sample pack, they play a preview of a beat. And so basically, they sent me the pack, and asked me to make a beat to it, which I did. And it was up on their website, but it was so funny to hear other people using the same sounds because then the beat sounded the same. And that's what I love is like, I'm kind of like you, like I never feel threatened. Like, I mean, sometimes I might even tell somebody the exact sample I use. If somebody say, man, hey man, where you get that from? oh man, this was spliced in the Scott Storch kit, yada, yada, yada. And I mean, to me, that's not being careless or arrogant. To me, that's just saying like, hey, like our brains are going to interpret this sound differently. Like we're going to, do something different with it. And so, and that's kind of how I've always been with it. Like I know now I'm not going to give away every secret, that I do.
I give them all away.
I mean, and that's cool. But like, but for me, and I think part of it because my background is a teacher, I'm used to, like, I'm passionate about educating people. I'm passionate about, taking a complex concept, breaking it down, and seeing that light bulb go off. And I'm like, all right, I did my job. But I think what, I won't say grinds my gears, but I think what can kind of frustrate me sometimes, and y'all may be able to relate because we all wear multiple hats. Sometimes I get kind of annoyed where I guess someone knows me for wearing a very specific hat and think that's the only hat that I wear, and will even be complimentary of it. Like, yo, you dope. Yo, that was a dope mix. Yo, that was a... And then in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, I'm trying to make beats, man. What you talking about? I'm like, man, I got like 500 beats. You ain't even heard, so, and I know for me that bothers me sometimes. Like, even if somebody knows me as a beat maker, they're like, yo, that slap. I'm like, man, I'm trying to mix your next record. You know what I'm saying? So I guess my question for you, Jacie, and then everyone else, however you feel, wearing multiple hats, do you feel you've ever been pigeonholed? Yeah, do you ever feel you've been pigeonholed? And then if so, how did that make you feel and how did you respond to it?
I feel like I've been, when it comes to, like I have mentioned before, a lot of times when people would meet me, they would hear my music and they would call me an R&B singer. And I'm like, why am I always put into the R&B umbrella? Because I'm Black? Like, I really want to know because I do pop. My first like American market, I guess is the best way for me to describe it, outside of like Kizomba, doing like more of like the music that's based and more popular here was a pop rock ballad. So no one, and even in choosing that beat, I always felt uncomfortable because I'm like, well, people always imagine me this way. They want me to be this R&B singer. When I was doing Kizomba, I would always hear people be like, oh, well, you would be great if you did R&B. And it's just like, is there no other genre outside of R&B that I can sing? I'm confused. So that was annoying. Like, I would always get put in, and mind you, I've never did an R&B song when people were saying that. So it's like, where are you guys getting this idea from? Like, let me live. Let me live. So that to me is probably the most, like, the first time I've ever like experienced that. And then the second was like when I started vlogging, people had this idea that I was just this happy-go-lucky person all the time because I am very bubbly and I'm like, I like to be happy. And then when they would see me get upset and cry, they're like, what, you have other emotions? So that was like my like main experience getting put in the umbrella of things. But in regards to wearing multiple hats, like, I think as an artist, like, I like to touch a lot of genres. I don't like to just stick to one. I have my favorites, which I tend to gravitate to the most, but to just put me in that category of just being an R&B singer when I didn't do a lick of R&B music until like later on was crazy to me. I'm like, can you hear me outside of R&B, please? Because that's not the only thing I can do. Like, and I haven't done it until now. So
nice.
That's my experience.
Gonna wrap this up. The one thing about Zoom is I have no idea how long we've been going. I have no.
Oh, I got a timer on my screen. Do you want to actually hear the time?
Sure.
Well, we weren't like recording.
Oh, recording.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll give you the time and then I'll subtract, like, I guess it was like 30, 40 minutes. So we've been going for 2 hours and 22 minutes minus the 30, 40 minutes. So we're about our normal time when you subtract like the 45 minutes of just shooting the breeze.
All right. Josh, I certainly thank you for joining us today. This was fun, and hopefully, any other singer-songwriters listening to us will get a lot out of this. I'm sure they will.
I hope so. It was great being with you guys and hearing your perspectives, and y'all had some poppin' ass questions. Like, thank you. It wasn't like, what's your favorite beat and why do you like this artist? Who's your I get the most basic questions, so these questions were like amazing.
Good. But go ahead and I'm gonna have your social media information in the show notes, but go ahead and shout out your social media.
So everything is the same. Jacieworld, JACIE World, one word, on everything. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. It's facebook.com/Jacieworld. So everything is literally the same name. So if there's a platform and you like it, more than likely you'll find me on that. And then streaming platforms is just Jacie, so JACIE. And yeah, that's basically it.
All right, we just want to thank everybody for tuning in. I'm Czar.
I'm Pat.
I'm Chaos.
I'm Oshay.
And I'm Jacie.
We'll catch y'all next time.
Peace.